This is also a time of change for my family. Catherine becomes Queen Consort. In recognition of her own loyal public service, I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so.
There is no sealed letter. There is no secret Windsor briefing where Princess Anne read out a king's final command while Camilla's hand tightened on a chair and William's jaw set in silence. That version of events, the one built from unnamed insiders, invented dialogue, and a scene staged like a screenplay, does not appear in any verified royal reporting. It is fiction dressed up as revelation, and it is worth being honest about that distinction before going any further. What is real is a slower, quieter, and in many ways more human story. A king managing a serious illness in public for the first time in the modern monarchy's history. A prince and princess of Wales who have spent the last 2 years absorbing more of the institution's weight than either expected to at this stage of their lives, and a family navigating scandal, succession law, and public scrutiny all at once. That story doesn't need embellishment. It's compelling enough as it stands. In February 2024, Buckingham Palace announced that King Charles III had been diagnosed with cancer, discovered incidentally during treatment for a separate, benign prostate condition. Site index equals 9-1. The king postponed his public-facing duties while undergoing treatment, though other senior royals stepped in on his behalf, and he continued essential state business such as his regular meetings with the Prime Minister. Aside, the palace did not disclose which type of cancer he had, a decision consistent with the institution's long-standing reluctance to share detailed medical information about the sovereign. Weeks later, the family absorbed a second blow. Site index equals 14-1. In March 2024, Catherine, Princess of Wales, revealed in a recorded video message that she too had been diagnosed with cancer and had begun a course of preventative chemotherapy. Aside, she explained that she and William had spent time processing the news privately, in large part so they could explain it to their 3 children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, in an age-appropriate way before going public. For a period, both the king and the future queen were undergoing treatment simultaneously. Site index equals 15-1. With Kate and Charles both recuperating, the burden of carrying on visible royal duties fell largely to Queen Camilla and Prince William. Our site, a royal biography published more recently, describes just how heavy that stretch was for William personally. Site index equals 11-1. Prince William reportedly called 2024 his hardest year, as he juggled a heavier workload while supporting both his father and his wife through their respective cancer diagnoses. Our site, according to the same account, site index equals 11-1. William at one point asked his father to reduce his own royal workload given everything the family was managing, but Charles turned the request down. Our site, Buckingham Palace, has not commented on the details of that book. Separately from any private family drama, the institution itself made a real, documented adjustment during this period, and it's the closest thing to a genuine succession mechanism in this story, though it has nothing to do with sealed instructions. Site index equals 9-1. Normally, 4 people from the line of succession over the age of 21 can act as counselors of state on the monarch's behalf, traditionally the sovereign's spouse plus the next 3 in line. But last year Charles formally requested an expansion of that list, asking that his sister, Anne, the Princess Royal, and his brother, Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, also be permitted to act as counselors. A site, that request mattered because 2 of the counselors technically ahead of Anne and Edward in the normal order, Prince Harry and Prince Andrew, are not in a position to realistically exercise the role. Site index equals 9-1. Harry lives outside the UK in California, and Andrew no longer carries out royal duties following the scandal connecting him to Jeffrey Epstein. Our site, adding Anne and Edward was a practical fix to a real gap in the chain of institutional continuity. Not a dramatic gesture, but a legally sensible one, approved through Parliament rather than whispered in a sealed folder. This is, in a sense, the real version of who does the king trust to hold things together when he can't. It wasn't a private wish read aloud to a stunned family. It was a formal request to expand a legal mechanism, reported plainly by outlets like Time, because the existing list of backups had become impractical. By 2025 and into 2026, both William and Catherine had returned to a fuller public schedule following their respective recoveries, and by most independent accounts, both have visibly stepped into more prominent roles. Site index equals 8-1. Catherine confirmed her own remission around a year into recovery and has gradually increased her workload since, marking the occasion with a reflective video project and returning to joint public appearances with William, including a visit to Charing Cross Hospital to support NHS staff in January 2026. Our site. Royal commentators and tabloid insiders alike have noted the couple taking on more of the ceremonial and representative load once carried more fully by the king. Some of this reporting is well-sourced and incremental, more joint engagements, more solo representation at state functions. Some of it edges into speculation dressed as certainty, particularly around the question of abdication. That's worth flagging directly, because it's the raw material the sealed wish narrative is built from. Several tabloid outlets have run stories this year citing anonymous palace insiders who claim an abdication plan is quietly being rehearsed. Site index equals 6-1, reportedly including practice runs for the Accession Council, the public proclamation from St. James's Palace, and a private handover ceremony where Charles would sign an instrument of abdication. A site. One version of this reporting points to trooping the colour in June as a symbolically fitting moment for such an announcement, framing it as a chance for site index equals 2-1 Charles to take one final public hurrah on the balcony before handing over to William and Kate. Our site then other cites the king's evident fatigue at a March state banquet as evidence that a handover could come site index equals 3-1 in a matter of weeks, attributing the claim to unnamed royal insiders. A site. None of this has been confirmed by Buckingham Palace, and abdication, while it has precedent elsewhere in Europe, would be an extraordinary departure from British royal tradition, where monarchs have historically reigned until death rather than stepping aside voluntarily. Edward VIII 1936 abdication remains the singular modern exception, and it was a crisis, not a plan. It's entirely possible, even likely, that Charles will continue as monarch while William and Catherine simply continue absorbing more responsibility incrementally, the way heirs to the throne generally have throughout the monarchy's modern history. Readers should treat insider claims of an imminent abdication with real skepticism. They've circulated in British tabloids for years without materializing, often timed to sell magazines around royal milestones. If there's a genuine, documented source of strain inside the family right now, it isn't a secret letter about William and Catherine. It's what to do about Andrew. Site index equals 7-1. Despite losing his title, being stripped of his Royal Highness honorific, and settling a civil lawsuit with Virginia Giuffre, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor remains eighth in the formal line of succession, and legislation to formally remove him has not yet passed. Our site Furious Smiley site index equals 5-1. The king has reportedly been reluctant to intervene directly in the succession list, partly out of concern for how it would affect Andrew's daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, and partly to avoid the appearance of prejudging an ongoing investigation. Our site This is a live, consequential, and genuinely uncertain question, a far more real source of institutional anxiety than any invented second folder. It's also worth noting what Catherine herself has said publicly, since her own words carry more weight than any imagined dialogue. In her March 2024 video announcement, she spoke plainly about the toll of the previous months. Site index equals 14-1. She described the diagnosis as a shock, said she and William had worked to manage it privately for their children's sake, and explained that it had taken time both to recover from surgery and to explain the situation to George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way appropriate for their ages. A site. That is a far more affecting account of what becoming the person expected to remain steady actually costs a family than any fabricated scene of a princess bracing herself in a Windsor sitting room. Stories like the one this article was originally framed around, dramatic sealed wishes, secret family confrontations, quotes invented for real, living people, are a genre unto themselves in royal media, and they draw real audiences precisely because they promise a look behind the curtain that official statements never give. But they aren't reporting. They are speculative fiction wearing the clothes of a news script, and treating them as factual does a disservice both to the audience and to the people they are written about. The true story of William and Catherine's rise in prominence is less cinematic but arguably more compelling. Two people in their 40s who spent a year each fighting cancer alongside a father and father-in-law doing the same, who kept showing up to public life anyway, and who are now, gradually and through ordinary institutional processes rather than secret letters, becoming the faces the monarchy leans on most. Whether that culminates in an early handover of the crown or simply in decades more of William serving as an increasingly visible Prince of Wales is genuinely unknown, and anyone claiming certainty about it, insider sourcing or not, is speculating. What can be said with confidence? Charles remains the reigning monarch. No abdication has been announced or confirmed by Buckingham Palace. William and Catherine have taken on a larger public role as both have recovered from serious illness. And the question of Andrew's place in the succession, not some invented family rift over a sealed folder, is the actual unresolved constitutional issue facing the family right now. Sure, here it is directly. There is no sealed letter, no secret Windsor briefing, no scene of Princess Anne reading a king's final command to a stunned family. That version is invented, dramatic royal fiction, not reporting. The real story is quieter, but still significant. In February 2024, Buckingham Palace announced King Charles III had been diagnosed with cancer. He postponed public duties during treatment, though other senior royals stepped in, and he continued essential state business like his regular meetings with the Prime Minister. Weeks later, Catherine, Princess of Wales, revealed her own cancer diagnosis and began chemotherapy, explaining she and William had spent time processing the news privately so they could tell George, Charlotte, and Louis first in an age-appropriate way. For a stretch, both the king and the future queen were in treatment at once. The visible weight of royal duties fell largely to Queen Camilla and Prince William, who later called 2024 his hardest year while supporting both his father and his wife. He reportedly asked Charles to lighten his own workload given the strain, a request Charles turned down. According to a royal biography, Buckingham Palace hasn't commented on the book. One real institutional change did happen. Charles formally asked to expand the list of councillors of state, people who can act on the monarch's behalf, adding his sister and brother Edward, since Harry, based abroad, and Andrew, no longer performing royal duties, weren't practical options. It was a legal fix, not a secret wish. By 2026, both William and Catherine, now in remission, had taken on more public duties, including joint appearances like a January visit to Charing Cross Hospital. Tabloids have floated insider claims of a planned abdication around events like Trooping the Colour, but none of this is confirmed by the palace. An abdication would break sharply with British royal tradition. The genuinely unresolved family issue isn't a mysterious folder. It's what happens to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who remains 8th in the line of succession despite losing his titles, with legislation to remove him still not passed.